Start here in a minute. Okay, guys, here a live podcast. This is Philipp Schaedler, your local real estate agent in Los Angeles. And today I was actually supposed to have David Marriott with me here, who is a recruiter and also in the construction and engineering business. But he has a very bad chest cold and he basically lost his voice, so he couldn't be here. So I wish him well. We all wish him well that he makes a speedy recovery. But in the meantime, we'll just carry on the Lone Ranger style. So a few things I want to talk about. I got some questions that I had been emailed by some people. And obviously the questions are about real estate and where the market is heading. Is it a good time to buy and all these kind of things. And in general, it depends. I mean, if you're purchasing a home to make a quick equity gain, then it's probably not the best time, because I think prices, even realtor.com, you can Google it, says prices will slightly increase in 2023. Certainly nothing like what we've seen in the pandemic, because the prices shot up like crazy, like everybody knows. But if you're buying long-term, I think long-term is definitely a good plan to buy, because when you look at different graphs, I'm just going to hold this up. I don't know if you can see this. But this graph basically shows you the investment opportunity. So if you had bought a house in the 60s, how it shot up all the way up here, so you can see the line. What I'm trying to say with this is that when you invest into a home over long periods of time, it will always go up. It has dips, it goes this way, but it always continuously goes up. So for long term, I think it is absolutely a good time to buy. Now, you can also check with Dave Ramsey. You probably heard of Dave Ramsey. He's the real estate and financial advisor online. And he just recently said, buy now and refinance later, because the prices are not coming down. And I would agree with that, because the idea is when you buy, okay, here's the thing. The Sir Templeton, for example, says buy at the height of pessimism. And I would say right now is probably the time of pessimism, because everybody will tell you don't buy now, rates are high, prices are high. We're in a situation where I don't think the prices or the rates will come down anytime soon in the next couple of months. However, the Feds are having a meeting on the 14th of December coming up now, and there is speculation that they're going to discuss the next interest rate hike. And as we all know, the interest rate hike has been very dramatic at that 0.75 point, I think 4 times. So it was very fast. In my opinion, they did it too late and too fast, too intense. I think they should have started a year or two prior and slowly at 0.25% or maybe a half. But anyway, there's a speculation that this might be the last rate hike. So we'll have to wait and see what the meeting on December 14th brings forth. However, if that is the case and you are a serious buyer in the market, then I would recommend to really start your planning now, because the idea is right now, let's call it a high interest environment. Interest rates around 6.5%, really not that high, but compared to what it was a year ago, it seems high. It's almost double. So knowing that we're in that environment, you can make better deals, because the market has slowed down. The idea obviously was for the Feds to raise the interest rates so the market would slow down, because it just went out of control. It just went up and up and up. So you can make the best deals in a high interest environment, which is currently. So if the rates, just like you can Google it, by the way, Fannie Mae predicted that by 2023, the interest rates will drop to 4.5%. So if this is true, if the mortgage rates really drop to 4.5%, guess what's going to happen? All the buyers that were eliminated with the high interest rates, couldn't afford it, or just went on the sidelines and want to wait it out, well, they're all going to come and flood the market. And if they flood the market, the next thing that's going to happen is that it's going to drive the prices up, because it's demand again. So really, when you think about it, the best time would be to buy in the next 2-3 months, in my opinion. and then refinance when the rates come down. Of course, we don't know for sure if this is going to happen. Nothing is certain in real estate, and nothing can be predicted 100%. However, timing is very important, and it's also very important that you have your credit repaired, have your credit, everything lined up, and obviously talk to a good lender. A good lender, I think, probably still can get you maybe even in the 6 or maybe the high 5s interest rate, 30-year fixed interest rate. So if you would get now the opportunity to negotiate the best price on a house, and then 6 months later, you will get the best price on a mortgage, if that makes sense. Now, in talking about price reductions, there's a lot of price reductions. If you go online now and look in the MLS, for example, there's a lot of listings that have price reductions, sometimes even after 18 hours, after listing for 18 hours. And this is what I call kind of price reduction by design. So if you are in an environment where the buyer is aware and knows that there is discounts going on, if you don't really have a discount tag on your listing, you might seem the odd one out, or you might seem overpriced. So what I mean by that is you see, for example, a listing that let's say a listing that's at $1 million, and 18 hours later it's dropped $100,000 to $900,000. Well, after 18 hours, so I think this is the strategy that they're using, is to just basically look like you're giving a discount. So you had plans to sell the house for $900,000 to begin with, but you listed at $1 million, so it brings it down, the price reduction. Now you have a price reduction tag, because buyers are frugal and buyers are comparing location and price and size of the house. And when buyers see, okay, well, this house was just discounted, and maybe that's a house they like, then they're more likely to engage into a negotiation or make an offer on that house, if that makes sense. But on the other side of the token, though, is that if you have a $100,000 price reduction from a $1 million house, then you have a 10% price reduction, which is really not the way I see it. I think the price reductions in LA are around 1 to 5%. So in my opinion, that kind of news, of course, takes that 10%, 20%, and says it's 20, 30, 40%, which I think is way, way above what's really happening. Another question, again, was where do you see the market heading? I do believe that long term, again, it's worth it to buy a house. And if you are, here's the thing. A lot of people think that the American dream is kind of gone, because a lot of people feel that they cannot afford a house. And that may be the case because, again, when interest rates are high and the prices are high and it doesn't seem to be coming down, then for a lot of people that is a very difficult goal to obtain. But you can also have to kind of see it from this point of view. If you're younger, like in 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, you have the time on your side and you could make a plan. So let's say the top of the mountain is your goal, right? So the house, you want to buy a house, it's on the top of the mountain, but you can't get up there. You don't have enough money to make that step. So now the idea would be to go around the mountain and have several stops. And what I mean by that is, like we just closed on a deal, well, we're not closed yet, but an escrow. It's a cash deal. It's a townhouse that's around $500,000 mark here in Los Angeles. And this is a stepping stone. So you would buy a house or a townhouse like that, wait until the equity goes up, maybe 5, 10 years or 8 years, whatever it is, then sell that property, and with the proceeds from that property, you go into the next bigger one, and so forth until you get to the top of the mountain where your house is. So this is one way to do it. Of course, a lot of people really would just like to go from A to B, but this is only possible if you have the cash or the financial means to do so. So that would be one avenue. Now, another avenue is also, it's kind of unusual, but it does happen every now and then, is where people buy a house together. So for example, let's say if you're in your 20s, 30s, 40s and you have roommates, well, what's the difference? If you have roommates already, then you would go with 2 or 3 people, maybe 4 people, you would go and buy a house together. So let's just say it's $1 million house. And let's just say you want to put down $200,000. So everybody puts down, out of the 4 people, $50,000. That's a lot easier to come up with than $200,000. And now you're equal owners, and if you want, one owner can always come out, like sell after a few years and get somebody else in there. But this is one way. This would be like a business arrangement. Obviously, I highly would recommend, if you go that route, that you consult a lawyer because it has to be drafted up and written up properly. You know, who gets the master bedroom, who gets the park in the garage, so all these issues come up. But if you can arrange that in somehow, and like I said, it's no different than a roommate situation, except you actually own, you know, you don't pay somebody else's mortgage off, you're actually paying yourself. And what I mean by that is every time you make a mortgage payment, it is an investment. It's like a savings account. It's an investment in your equity. And when I talk to people, I have some clients that are doctors, dentists, lawyers, and they all tell me that most of the money they usually make was with real estate. You know, they bought early on, and real estate is just a great way to create wealth. But it has to be planned. You really have to have a game plan. You know, first of all, like I said, you got to get your credit in order. Then you have to have a good lender. You have a good realtor on the side that has your best interest at heart. And so that you can actually hammer out a plan. So if, for example, if somebody is thinking about buying by next summer or springtime or summer, now is the time to really hammer out your plan and put it on paper. You know, talk to your accountant, see what you can afford. Dave Ramsey, for example, says, you know, your mortgage payment shouldn't be more than 25% of your monthly income. So if you can do that, that's great. Some people do 50%, I guess. You know, it's maybe a little bit more risky, but the point is you're still better off doing that, in my opinion, than renting. But again, you have to run the numbers with your accountant and make sure the numbers make sense. I know that, for example, talking about, again, let's say 4 people own a house. I know Quicken Loans and there's some other mortgage companies, they do offer loans for something like that. And I guess it would be a tenancy in common where you own the house together with 4 people. So that would be another way to get to that point. Let's see, do we have any, let's see what's going on. I'm just checking the questions real quick. All right. Okay, Regina has a question here. Okay, it's coming up. So the American dream we talked about, and also the best time to buy is really when the pessimism is high, and this is now, and the best time to sell is when sellers' optimism is high. So you don't want to wait until the buyers come out and basically you have more competition, because right now buyers also have the benefit of having less of a bidding war. More time. It's not as stressful to make offers, because last year it was very stressful to make offers, because you would make an offer and in like 2 or 3 hours you would be outbid already. And that was stressful and frustrating for a lot of buyers, as well for agents, because it's a ton of work and then nothing really to show for. And oftentimes the agent will be blamed, you know, you didn't do it well or whatever. It's really not that. It's actually the market, the way it was at that time. One of the questions I was asked here is, do you think that AI will ever replace a real estate agent? That's an interesting question. Obviously, a lot of companies have tried, you know, like Redfin, Opendoor, Zillow. Opendoor, for example, you know, had a lot of trouble, and I think the stock went way down because, I don't know if you noticed, and you can Google this as well, but Opendoor was slapped with a $62 million fine. And the $62 million fine was based on clients complaining about their business techniques, because they would advertise, you know, sell your house with us compared to a regular real estate agent. Well, it turns out that thousands and thousands and thousands of clients, after they saw the net sheet at the end of the transaction, found out they actually paid more, and they would actually have saved money if they would use the traditional real estate agent. So this, you know, again, I don't really usually wish anybody bad, any company anything bad. However, the idea is that when you do shenanigans like that, I just don't think that is okay. And especially as a discount broker or iBuyer, I guess, where you say it's cheaper with us, but then it ends up costing more, because oftentimes, you know, you could say it's a 1% listing fee, for example. And like some companies do, but then there is other fees that come on top of it at the end. So really, when you do the numbers at the very end of it, it's no longer 1% listing fee. And legally it is, because the listing fee is 1%, but then all these other different charges are coming to it. And I think this is, I don't know for sure, but I'm assuming this is what happened to Opendoor. But the fact that they got, by the FTC, fined with a $62 million lawsuit is huge, you know, and because that would tell me there's thousands of people and thousands of dollars they have to pay back to these people, you know, to make this well again. But their stock has dropped, and I think that even the CEO has been replaced, from what I know, Eric Wu. And I don't know if it's because of that, but obviously their stock dropped, and who wants to buy into a company that has that kind of a practices, you know? And I think Redfin also had an issue a few months ago about discrimination. Their stock also dropped because there was some kind of discrimination accusation. I don't know if it actually was true or not, but I read about it. And let's see what else here. Somebody, let's see here. Oh, here's a question from Globites. Can foreign investors get a mortgage in the U.S. by not being a citizen? That's an interesting question, actually, and thank you, Tess, for asking that question. Here's the thing about that. I had a client from Switzerland, and they wanted to find out if they can get a mortgage here because they don't want to use the cash, all the cash, to pay the whole house with the cash. So most lenders will tell you it's not possible, but right, because you're not a citizen, you don't have a credit history here in America, and that is not entirely true. So I found out there was a couple of mortgage brokers that I have talked to, and the way it works is this. So instead of having a credit rating in the US, they would go check their account. Let's say like this person in Switzerland, for example, they would check their account balance and their account history, and that would basically be their credit history. So now, one thing about foreign investors who are not citizens and who are basically not living here and don't have a credit score, they can get a mortgage. However, from what I've learned is, and don't quote me on that, but from what I've learned is talking to the brokers was that they have to put down 30%, and they also may pay 1% extra on interest rate. So the mortgage is going to be a little bit more expensive for them. However, they are able to keep the other 70% of their cash in their bank because obviously they want to, most people don't want to put their cash into one asset and pay it full. So it is a possibility, Tess, just to let you know, that is possible. It's a little bit difficult to find these brokers. And like I said, I have two. So if you have a foreign investor that wants to come here and get a mortgage, it is possible. A lot of times foreign investors just pay cash. So, then that obviously that situation doesn't exist. At the moment, I don't know if you guys know, but at the moment about 25 to 30% of all real estate transaction deals are cash. So these people who have cash right now are huge advantage because they can use this high interest rate environment to negotiate the price down, and they don't have to deal with high interest rates. So that is basically the best of both worlds, So, and if, again, it's going to be interesting to see what the Feds are going to be discussing on the 14th of December. If we really reach that peak, if it indicates that this is going to be the last interest rate hike, then I think that would be the time to buy, because obviously after that the rates will come down again, most likely. Again, we don't know for sure, but most likely that would be the case. Somebody had asked me about for sale by owners. That's an interesting thing. Of course, most real estate agents will not agree with having you sell your own house, and there are several reasons for it. But one example I can give you, like my coach gave me that example, and that makes perfect sense. Let's say you have a Rolex watch. And let's say you go in a store, a very nice retail store environment, where you buy that Rolex watch versus a garage sale where you buy a Rolex watch. So where do you think would you pay less, or where do you think you would pay more? Probably in the retail store. And why is that? So when you try to sell your own house, you don't have access to the hundreds of websites. So when the moment we have a listing, it syndicates it to hundreds of websites. There is a much larger resources that we have to get the price. And interesting enough, there is actually a gentleman, I forgot his name now, who founded the For Sale by Owner website, and he had a condominium in New York, and he was trying to sell it by himself, and ended up using a realtor because the idea is a realtor can get you more money. Even though it seems like you're paying them the commission, if you have a realtor that really has a good marketing strategy and has experience, you'll end up getting more with an agent than selling on your own. Also, another issue is that has happened sometimes when you have a for sale by owner that has a for sale by owner sign in front of the yard. Well, anybody that has any crooked ideas thinks, oh, this person's probably by themselves, so I can just go in there and, that you get robbed, people have been robbed, or people just do things where there's like 2 or 3 people coming in the house. One keeps their owner busy, the other one look around the house and might go to the cabinets. All this stuff has happened. It's not common, but it has happened. So I think there's just a little bit more vulnerability for that on that side. But the bigger vulnerability for sale by owner is, we have numerous disclosure forms that we usually work with when a transaction takes place. And these disclosure forms are obviously primarily designed to protect both sides, so the seller's protected, the seller has to disclose any material defects that are in the house. And if you don't have these things in place as a for sale by owner, it could possibly haunt you at the end, because let's just say there's something wrong, whatever, with the plumbing or whatever, and you sell the house, and all of a sudden something happens a few months later. Well, they might come back to you and say, well, you may have known about this issue and I want you to pay for it. So it could get messy, and has happened before. It definitely is not an uncommon occurrence. So for sale by owners, somebody asked me if it's a good idea. I obviously, as a real estate agent, would highly advise against it for the reason I just mentioned. And, so that would probably not be the way to go, in my opinion. And oftentimes, there is actually a sheet I had here somewhere where it shows, I didn't bring it, I guess, where it shows that since the last 10 years, the for sale by owners have declined. So in other words, more and more people are using a realtor because they do realize that, you just have more money, more marketing, more power behind it. One thing I also want to mention real quick, I don't know if you knew this, but we also do commercial real estate. We just closed on the property 2 days ago, last Friday, a business transaction in Simi Valley. That is a thing that people might not know about me. And I have a great partner. His name is Paul, and he is a commercial real estate broker for many, many years. He's a top guy in the field and really knows his stuff. He's just a very, very amazing guy. Let's see here. What else do we have? Is there any questions here? Okay. Yeah, you're very welcome, Tess. I'm glad I answered your question. Okay, it's over here. And Andrea is watching. Hello, my friend from Austria. So if I'm just going to see if there's any more questions in here, but it looks like we have it answered. And again, yeah, somebody asked me, have you ever seen a crazy real estate market as it was during COVID? Well, no, I haven't. And I actually talked to real estate agents who have been in the business for a long, long time. The COVID situation was very unusual because in the very beginning, when COVID hit, everybody thought the market would tank. And even our brokerage actually laid off people, I think 400 people up in Bellingham, Washington at that time. And only to hire them back 2 months later because, again, EXP was already set up with online transactions, so we were busier than ever before. So it was very unexpected what happened, and the equity gain that happened during COVID was just unheard of. So it really was very unusual, very unusual. And I'm not sure if you're ever going to see that again. Again, I think that the equity growth until next year is going to be slower, but in the long run, I think it definitely will be worthwhile, to do. And again, I would suggest if you can't, if you really think about buying, just sit together with a realtor. It doesn't cost anything. Even with, it's funny, even sometimes when I talk to buyers, they're afraid to call lenders because they think it costs something. A good lender will not charge you for anything because you're calling, you're potentially giving them business. So they will be glad to discuss with you because they obviously need to know your financial situation. They need to know all the details so they can give you a sound and good opinion about how much you can expect of a mortgage rate you can expect. And also, again, if you clean up your credit, the higher credit score, the better your mortgage rate will be. And also, another thing I want to mention too is for first-time home buyers, and especially in California, there is a lot of down payment assistance available. So I don't know if it was now, but pre-COVID, we had a gentleman who bought a house, and this usually only works in the $400,000, $500,000, $600,000 value range, and you can only make a certain amount of money. But there was a gentleman who got $90,000, I believe, from the state down payment assistance, and also $25,000 from the county. So, and some of that, of course, it has to be paid back, but it is at a very low interest rate. And another thing is the California Housing Housing Association, I believe it is, has a program where if you get down payment assistance, if you qualify for down payment assistance, And I think this goes even higher to $1 million property and higher. If you live in the property for 5 years minimum, that down payment is forgiven. That's huge. What you do have to do is, in order to activate that, you have to take I think it's a few hour course. It's a $90 course, because the course is basically educating you about what is involved in purchasing and getting a mortgage, the responsibilities of homeownership. So all these things are part of it. But if you think about it, let's say you get a 10%, because they give you 10%, right? So 10% down payment assistance or down payment. If you sell it, the house, before the 5 years up, you're going to have to pay that back, obviously. But if you stay in it, you can keep it. But if you were, let's say you had 10% saved up, and you get the down payment assistance from the state, so now you would have 20% down payment, which lowers your monthly payment. So there are certain things, certain ways to go about things. There's a lot of avenues that first-time home buyers can get. And oftentimes you get tax benefits, so it's really, really important to talk to a good lender that has great relationships with the banks, or broker, for example, a mortgage broker, that can give you all the details and the best deal possible. Let's see, I think that kind of covers it. Let's see if there's any more. Yes, fits for houses. Yes, 2023 was an anomaly. Yep, never happened before, and most likely never happen again. The perfect storm. You're right. Absolutely it was. Yep. That's Lynn. That's right. Hey, Lynn. You're absolutely right. I probably would never see that again. It was crazy. So it definitely was a huge, huge surprise to everybody. I think that wraps it up for today, unless I have any more questions. Let's see what we have here. No, it is that. Okay. Well, again, my name is Philipp Schaedler. If you have any real estate needs or questions, feel free to reach out. My number is 310-918-2260, or you can go to my website at schaedlerrealtor.com. We do residential and commercial real estate. If you know somebody who wants to sell a business, please get in touch with me. Again, my partner, Paul, is amazing. We closed in less than 4 weeks, escrow. And this was a situation where a lawsuit had happened, or like, a kind of frivolous situation happened where somebody claimed they fell down, and because there was something, a sign was missing, and they turned into a lawsuit. Anyway, the owner just said, I want to sell the place. And this happened in the beginning of November, that incident. And at the beginning of November, in the middle of November, we signed the paperwork, and just last Friday we closed escrow. So that was very, very exciting. It went very well. And again, Paul, my friend, is a great commercial realtor, and we do this together. Anyway, guys, thank you so much for watching, for your time. I appreciate it, and I'll see you next time. Thank you, Lynn. Thank you so much.